When large jobs require moving massive amounts of snow, get the work done quickly and efficiently with the Western Pile Driver and all-new Pile Driver XL pusher plows, both featuring Trace Edge technology. These pushers scrape down to the pavement with an advanced cutting-edge system that has independent 2-foot sections that move vertically, oscillate, and trip. Get more jobs done faster with the Western Pile Driver lineup of pusher plows.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and this morning I have with me special guest Saman Samii, financial advisor at UBS. Sammy, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
I'm super glad that you're here. We connected in Miami at the CEO International Conference, and we've been connected on LinkedIn since. I was looking at your profile and your bio, and you came to the U.S. on a tennis scholarship to play Division I tennis.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's
Yeah,
pretty impressive.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. Tennis runs in my blood.
Tennis is the I was watching the US Open. Did you watch the US Open?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
And I love what Chase says, Chase Bank. They say the world's wealthiest sport.
Yeah, it's definitely a country club sport. Golf and tennis, right? Is where you can do a lot of business on the court or the course. And it served me well in my industry, but I just love it. It's just part of who I am.
They say that as long as you can handle a racket well, you can walk into any country club in the world and immediately build relationships and make friends and start connecting with high-profile people as long as you play well.
That is absolutely correct. And as of recently, I've met some NBA players, former, NFL players at country clubs. And the key is when you play with those guys is to kick their butt. You don't hold back.
And so you let them how fast can you get that serve across the line?
Nowadays, probably 120 miles an hour. But back in my playing days, probably close to 135, I'd say.
So you're a beast.
I mean, I try to be just like you.
There you go. I love it, man. I love tennis. Have you seen that movie, The Challenge? Or The Challenger?
I have, and it's, everyone comes up to me and asks me about it because I kind of played on the tour for 4 years in that
I saw
level,
that.
I guess.
Yep.
And that's the movie is great in terms of tennis, but I don't know about the plot. It was a little bit weird, but other than that, yeah, the tennis part is pretty right.
The plot was a little bit weird myself.
Yeah.
I didn't like what they did at the end. What happened? Who won? Why did she scream?
Yeah, it was the weirdest ending. It was just like abrupt ending. Yeah.
What's up with all the cheating? I'm not a big fan of the cheating. So world-class professional athlete. That's amazing. What's the number one thing you took away from being a professional tennis player that you took into life and business?
Yeah, so I think tennis players, it's a one-man sport. You have a coach, but you don't have a coach during the actual match. So it's really all up to you. And so I think one thing that I've taken away from tennis is grit, right? I just don't give up, and then I have this notion that for instance, if I hit 1,000 forehands and backhands every day, there's no way I'm going to get worse at what I do. So I do the same thing in business. If I pick up the phone more than others, or if I send more emails, if I just I'm on all the time. There's no way I'm going to get worse in business, right?
Mm,
So that's kind of what that's one of the main things I take away from tennis is we have this unique ability to just keep moving forward,
yeah.
because you have no other choice. You either lose or you win, and you have to figure it out on your own. It's a very entrepreneurial sport, to be honest.
Do you seriously do 1,000 forehands and backhands every day?
I used to. I used to in my playing days in college and even as a junior in Sweden. I used to hit 1,500 forehands and 1,500 backhands every morning.
Wow.
Lots of blisters, lots of sore arms, but it builds character, and there's no way that you get worse. And then I would come across my competitors, and they'll say, "Well, I did 1,550." Then you better believe I'm going to do 1,600 the next day, and so
Huh.
it just kept going like that.
How long does it take to do 1,600 backhands, 1,600 forehands? What does that workout look like?
If you have a good hitting partner on the cross the net, it shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes each side.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it goes pretty fast.
The
Yeah.
ball's coming that fast.
Yeah, we're pounding it.
Huh. You don't even see the ball when it's going that fast, do you? You're just reacting.
It's a rhythm, right? So you get in a rhythm, you hit, you set your feet, and then you go at it again. So it's more of a rhythmic thing. But yeah, you do have to pay attention because the ball's coming with different pace or spin or slice, right? So, but typically when you go cross court like that, it's a rhythmic thing. So it's important
Mm.
that you have someone across the net that can keep up.
Mm. Well, that's very, very impressive. I love sports. I'm an athlete myself. Uh, I never played professional sports, but I was very close in the world of ice hockey.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, born and raised in Sweden. I'm a big fan of hockey.
there you go. Hockey's
Yeah,
my sport.
yeah.
I love hockey. It's not the world's wealthiest sport, but it's
It's one of
definitely
the world's toughest sports, right?
it is. It's a great sport. And I
Yeah,
like the fighting part. I guess
I do too. I do too.
that's the best part of it
Yeah.
in my world. So you're with UBS now. You focus on helping entrepreneurs achieve excellence in business and personal wealth. What does that look like for you? How are you helping entrepreneurs accomplish this?
Yeah, so UBS, as you may or may not know, it's the largest wealth management firm in the world. The firm manages about 6 trillion in personal wealth around the world. And where are those relationships cultivated and where is that wealth created? It's through entrepreneurship. So we meet entrepreneurs where they're at. So a lot of times they're what we call pre-liquidity. They haven't necessarily had an exit. They're still building the value. So we try to add value to owners of businesses through our research capabilities. We help them understand their valuation, their competitors, what does it look like in the public markets? How would your company trade in the private markets? What are the best in class companies out there? So we kind of provide clarity that way. And then secondly, I'll say is the connectivity of the platform. We can connect our clients or prospects to like-minded peers in the business, uh, experts in their industry to help them understand how to create that value. And then, of course, at the end of it, we want to quarterback the exit process and the succession planning and making sure that all that wealth that you have built 20, 25 years in the business is now maximized and monetized and then, preserved in the right manner for generations to come for you and your family. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of hats that we wear, but we truly like to partner with our clients.
I love that. And you know what? I was super excited to have you on the show. And I love entrepreneurship. I love entrepreneurs. In the entrepreneurial game, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, sometimes we have good moments, sometimes we have bad. But in in my career, I have worked with and know so many entrepreneurs in my 25-year career. And one thing I think has always stood out to me, and that's when they hear the words wealth management, they begin to think, oh, that's not for me. I'm not wealthy. I don't qualify to talk to somebody like Sammy. I don't qualify for that. And My thing is, I've also seen so many entrepreneurs, uh, 65, 70 years old. They don't have savings put away. They don't have money put away. The only thing they have is their business as an asset. They haven't diversified. They haven't, taken steps to build a portfolio that allows them to have a great financial end as they, walk towards the retirement stage. And sometimes they don't have their business in a place where they can sell it. How do you look at those two things?
Yeah, I mean, it's super important. You're touching on a sore subject for a lot of people, but I think one of the most common mistakes we see with entrepreneurs is they plan for it way too late. Potentially, when they're looking to exit the business, that's when they start to do their wealth planning, and that work needs to be gradually happening at least 2 years ahead of a big liquidity event. But even when someone's pre-liquidity, it's important for them to understand, why am I doing all this, and what do I want this wealth to do down the road for my kids or the people that I care about. So we really truly help on that front. It's a very important topic that
It
most
is,
people neglect.
that's really interesting. So when somebody is thinking, they're in the chair, they've built their business, they've worked hard, they're 40 years old, they're 50 years old, they're 60 years old. When is the right time for someone to come talk to you?
At least, 3 years ahead of an exit. I think it's prudent to come, plan for it, because there's a lot of moving parts. But I would encourage anyone that's growing a business, to have a wealth manager, because there's so much a good wealth manager can help with. Whether you need a great CPA, they can quarterback your estate planning attorneys, all the professionals that you need. A good wealth manager can quarterback all that, but they can also add tremendous value to your business in terms of what I just mentioned earlier, the research, the connections, the other opportunities to grow your pipeline of business. So a good wealth manager is not just talking about financial planning. I mean, that's the bread and butter of what we do, but that's where a UBS can come in play, because the platform is super powerful, and we like to find ways to extract all that power and give it to the entrepreneurs.
Mm.
For instance, I'll give you an example. So the firm manages about half the world's billionaires. Now, that's
Wow.
just not a sexy term that I like to throw out there. It actually means we have gathered tons of data from those relationships and tons of tips and tricks, best practices that we can then go out and give to the middle market business owner. Those are valuable connections to have. Business is all about connections, as you know, right?
Yeah.
And so that's something that we really, really like and take pride in providing, which is a little bit unique when you hear the word wealth manager. A lot of people don't think that way. They're short-sighted. They think, hey, come back to me when you have 12 months before the exit. We actually want to get to know you as early as possible. If it takes us 10 years to get the big liquidity event, so be it, right? Because we want to be part of the journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you really act as a partner. Talk about this idea of this quarterbacking, helping with things like a CPA or estate planning. How does that play into the success of an entrepreneur?
Well, estate planning for sure. Right now, that's a hot topic because we don't know what's going to happen in Jan 1, 2026, where the estate tax exemption laws sunset, right? So right now, you can gift away as a married couple 23 million and change. That's going to get slashed in half. We don't know what Congress is going to do. As an individual, you can give about 13 and change. So if that gets slashed in half, that's a lot of potential tax savings you can do ahead of a transaction. And oftentimes entrepreneurs don't plan ahead for that and they get stuck with that big tax bill. So that's our job, to quarterback all of that, ask the tough questions early on.
Hmm.
Sometimes you'd be surprised, business owners use their CPA as their CFO. And we're like, that's not good business practice. Let us get you in front of someone that can help you think strategically on your business, not just be the bookkeeper.
Hmm.
So it's very important to assemble the right team as you build, maintain, and then exit. So our job is to kind of follow you along the journey and meet you where you are.
I love that. It's a lot about personal relationship, I hear. Just a question. Does the market care who wins the presidential election, or does the market adjust to the president?
The market tends to price those things in way in advance of the election. So right now, there's a couple of different scenarios. You know, if the blue side wins, there's fears that taxes could go up and all that stuff, and corporate earnings could be hit. So there's all kinds of noise out there. But at the end of the day, we always like to say, don't include politics in your decision making on your portfolio. The markets tend to recover long term, and investing is a long term play, not a short term fear trade game, right?
Yeah.
We're in it for the long run, and that's why it's important to have a wealth plan and all the things, because then you could care less kind of what's going on in the world, because you're thinking about this long term. So yes, politics right now is a hot topic, but I would not make that a decision maker in my portfolio.
Now you hear, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people talking, oh, the stock market goes up, the stock market goes down, the stock market's going to crash. Can the stock market ever really crash?
I mean, it kind of did during COVID, right? And we got almost slashed in half. But again, the U.S. and I'm not even from the U.S., so you'll appreciate this, is a resilient country. Our capital markets is extremely resilient. So over time, you've seen these dips, and you've always seen the recovery, right? So
Yeah.
in any given period, the market tends to do 7-8%. That's a fair statement. There are other ways, though, through institutional research and the way you manage money, where you can have more clarity on what you own, so you're not necessarily just in this roller coaster riding the wave. And that's where, for instance, larger firms like ours have all the horsepower to give you more clarity and control on your investments.
I love it. This is great stuff. How does someone who's never worked with a wealth manager start diversifying the portfolio, getting connected? What's the first thing they should start looking at?
I mean, they should first start looking at what do they want. First of all, just do a balance sheet exercise. Look at your assets, your liabilities, and then match that with what you want in life, and then plan for that. But one of the best ways is just to start the conversation. It's just, don't overthink this too much. Just have the conversations, find the right team, because this is personal. Wealth management is a relationship business. It's extremely important that you like who you work with, that they take an interest in your life, because it's a relationship business. It's not a transactional deal.
That's awesome information.
Yeah.
Is there a particular size of business that you work with at UBS? Is there a dollar figure that you hit, or do you work with anyone?
We get this question a lot. Our ideal clients is someone just like yourself, an entrepreneur. But if I had to put a number on it, most of our clients, their net worth is 10 million or more, but most of that wealth is created through a business. So we don't have minimums necessarily. Our minimum is that we want to partner with you. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're currently growing the business, great. There's so many ways we can help you with that. If you're close to an exit, we want to get in quickly and quarterback the process. So again, I go back to, we meet you where you are, but we typically work with high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals. And the definitions for that is typically entrepreneurs growing wealth in a private health business.
I love it. What's one mistake you see entrepreneurs making today with their wealth management, with their cash, something they can leverage and do better?
They don't plan for it. They're so focused on the balance sheet of the business, and they tend to put aside the personal side of this. And so oftentimes they wait too long, and they get hit with big tax burdens. They could have made a lot more money and done a lot more good in the world with that wealth had they just thought about it just a little bit, right? Most owners of businesses are just so focused on their business. And I get it, because they have people to care for, they have payroll, they have all the stress of entrepreneurship. But if you can just carve out even if it's 1 hour a week, just to think about what does this all mean for me and my family? Why am I even doing this? And then actually take action and to put something in place, you're going to be shocked how much more wealth you're going to create and how much more good in the world you can do with that wealth.
Yeah, that's awesome. You had talked about estate planning a little bit at the beginning. You had mentioned estate planning. Why is estate planning important for an entrepreneur?
Because a lot of times, if you're pre-liquidity, meaning you haven't even thought about selling the business, a lot of times you can take those units of your business and move them into a trust at lower valuations. And then when come time to maybe monetize the business, you've already moved shares into your kids' trust or whoever you care for that you want to pass off this wealth to.
Yeah.
And now you've lowered your tax burden on the day you sell your business because it's already been done ahead of time. This is the most common mistakes we see with entrepreneurs is they set up these trusts way too late, or they do it when the third party valuation came for the sale of the business. And now all of a sudden the business is worth a lot more because you want the business to be worth a lot when you want to sell it.
Right.
But when you're pre-liquidity, you can actually move those shares at much lower valuations, which is a very, very smart wealth management strategy because then you can avoid a lot of the taxes after the transaction.
I love
So
that.
that's why estate planning is super important.
How do you feel about real estate purchasing, moving real estate into different trusts, that sort of thing?
Again, similar concept to moving private business shares. Most of our clients, to be honest with you, have a lot of real estate. So we typically shy away from investing in real estate or advising on it because most of them own their house, the second home, their vacation home. They might even have the office building of their business.
Sure.
So when it comes to real estate investments, we typically partner with others, but you could definitely move real estate into a trust for the same exact reason what I just mentioned with businesses.
And it's a nice way to do it because you get some tax benefit. You can, give it to your wife and then have it kicked down to your kids. You can,
Right.
set aside lots of, you can really start to create generational wealth.
You just hit the nail on the head. I was just about to say it's generational wealth transfer. That's what it is. And it's a smart way to do it.
Yeah. I love what we've been talking about today. Generational wealth is something that, maybe you might think like, oh, the Rockefellers have generational wealth. But a businessman or a businesswoman who has a business and they have a net worth of, $10 million, which isn't even a ton of money when you actually start to add up the valuation of the business, the valuation of the real estate, the assets that they've purchased to grow the business. When you start to put all that together, the possibilities for the average Jane and Joe to have generational wealth or to set up generational wealth plans are not that far-fetched.
Really not. And one of the things I'll say a lot of times when an owner is coming into the topic of generational wealth, there's a couple things that they don't know about. Is sometimes they're shocked as even as much as $10 million, what that will actually do for you for the rest of your life and for generations to come. A lot of times we show people on a risk-free basis, what is $10 million even going to give you? And people are shocked what they see, right? They can get 5, 6, 7% on that money. That's significant money, right? And so getting clarity on what even $1 million would do for you is more than you can possibly think of sometimes, and people neglect to even think about it. They're like, oh, $1 million is not a lot of money. Well, again, it's a lot of money to a lot of people, and you can do a lot of good with it if you're smart about it, right? Second topic is most people don't even talk to their kids or their family members on how to even transfer this wealth. That's a big stressor for people. That's another thing we help a lot of entrepreneurs is, well, my whole identity is in this business. I need to go figure that out now that I'm exiting. But then how do I even pass off this wealth without quote unquote screwing up my kids, right? And creating trust fund babies. There's so many ways and different ways you can put covenants in a trust or different rules and regulations on how your family is going to have govern, right?
Yeah.
Those are important topics that we also help with because that's a emotional piece of this that most people also neglect. And they just get all this money, and then guess what? Your kids see it, and indirectly, if you don't have those tough conversations, they're gonna want to buy way more expensive things like that. I know you have the money, come buy it for me, kind of thing, right? So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
true. You know, interestingly enough, I was reading an article. I think it was in Forbes magazine, but it was about Elon Musk, and it was talking about, you know, there was this conception that, you know, Elon Musk's you know, parents, father, whatever, was very wealthy, and that the reason why Elon Musk is very wealthy is because his dad was very wealthy, and his dad just passed that along. And interestingly enough, I don't remember all the aspects of the article, but it was saying that, you know, when Elon went to college, he had to pay, right? He didn't have his dad didn't kick down any money to him. His dad didn't give him anything, and he worked multiple jobs while in college to support himself. And there's even you know, a picture of him living in a hotel, sleeping on a couch. I think it said for like 2 years, and he's building whatever business he built up at that particular point and sold it for $300+ million. So that idea of build it, work for it, grow it is really, really important. When you're advising somebody, do you have in your mind a time frame that says this is when your kids should get the generational wealth, this is when they should start seeing that cash, this is how we structure that deal? How do you start to put those pieces together?
Yeah, a lot of times we quarterback these family meetings. Every family is different, so it's hard to give you a
Sure.
magic answer on this. However, I will say here's a general thing we always tell families. You want to help your kids, you want to give them an edge, but you don't want to just give it to them.
Yeah.
Okay? So you want to provide an opportunity for them to have an easier life, but they still need to go earn it. So for instance, one specific example is if your kids down the road want to buy a house, okay? And they have a job that pays them, let's say $100,000. If they have a job that you can set up in your trust to say, okay, I'll match whatever their salary is, I'll match it. If they want to go buy a house, they can go borrow against the trust versus the bank. These are
Mm.
some things tangibly that you could do for your kids to give them an edge, but you're not necessarily just giving them, $500,000 to go buy a house. You're letting them borrow against the trust. So it's easy liquidity, so they don't have to go do a mortgage and all of that. Does
Right.
that make sense? You kind
It
of you
does.
have the vehicle to help them in life, but you're not enabling. That's a very common conversation we have with folks. But there's no right or wrong answer. But typically, I would say uh, when kids get in their 30s or mid 30s, that's when they start to get larger distributions.
Yeah.
Naturally, because parents want them to go to college and they want them to kind of grind a little bit. And then they want them, hopefully when they get married or have kids or whatever, to have a little bit of an easier life.
Yep.
But very rarely do we see just people pass off millions of dollars to 25-year-olds. And when we do, it's typically not a good outcome.
Right. It's always
Yeah.
it's always gonna it's always gonna, or not always, but a lot of times it's gonna end bad. Have you ever heard of the book or read the book Die with Zero?
I have not, but I would love to read it.
Okay, there's a book out there, and it's all about the philosophy of spend everything you have now, you know, leave nothing for the next generation, make them earn it. It's very, very interesting. I I can't remember. Do you have kids or not?
I don't. I don't currently.
Planning to have kids in the future?
We'll see. Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? I
Yeah,
felt this same way.
yeah.
There was a certain time when I got married a little bit later in life. And so, you know, when my wife and I got married, we didn't even plan on having kids. We weren't even going to have them. We were just going to, you know, live this great life, travel, have fun, go to Vegas. I don't know. You know, we were going to have
Yeah.
a good time, you know? And then, and then it was like, my wife's like, oh, I'm pregnant. Like, oh, wow. I guess
Oh, wow.
I guess we're having a kid. And then
Yeah.
bam, we have number 2 because we didn't want one to be spoiled. And
Right.
then we were done having kids. And then 7 years later we had a surprise baby. And so then we got 3. So I'll tell you that a lot of the things that you've shared about today really touch home with, how you take care of your family for the long run. I love this idea of give them an edge, but don't give them everything.
Right.
And I think that is huge. I have a lot of guests on the show. We have a great time. I've had other, wealth professionals on the show, but I've never heard it put that way. Give them an edge, but don't give them everything. And I think that that's a really powerful way to think about how you pass on that generational wealth. And I like what you said. They got to have some grit. They got to get some skin in the game. They got to learn to work hard for themselves. Now, hypothetically, if you had kids someday, how would you set up their trusts?
Exactly like that. So I would want them to get the benefits of hard work and give them a little bit of a push. And then come time at some point in life where I feel like they have demonstrated that they have earned and they've built a great life and they have clarity, then I would maybe give them a larger distribution or something just
Yep.
to give them a celebratory moment.
Yep.
But I would by no means just hand them money because that's actually enabling your child to becoming lazy. And I'm not a parent, but I had a coach that instilled some serious grit in me. And boy, did he not give it to me for free, right? I grew up without a father, so my tennis coach was really my dad. In
Yeah.
quote unquote, he was the one man I spend a lot of time with. And he was just like that, right?
Mm.
I would have to earn my way to go practice with the better kids. So a lot of times he would put me with the 50-year-old dudes. And he said, go whoop their butt, and then you can practice with the A team. And that's exactly how I would do with my kids. I would want them to naturally go through life and becoming hardworking, honest, good people. And then at some point I would want to celebrate them, right? But along the way, I would want to give them an edge,
Yeah.
just a little bit.
I love that. If you
Yeah.
had kids someday, would they play tennis?
I mean, I definitely would put a racket in their hand, and then if they decided to do ballet after that, that's totally okay. But
Yeah.
selfishly, I would love for them to play tennis. I think tennis is just a beautiful sport because it's life. It teaches you about life, and I encourage you to go read Andre Agassi's book. Who I've had the pleasure of actually spend 3 days with him about 2 months ago in Vegas,
Yeah.
one-on-one,
Wow.
and he just said like, if you don't practice, you don't deserve to win.
Yeah.
Period. And so his point with that is tennis doesn't give you anything in life. You have to go earn it. And it's very much like an entrepreneur. So that's why I really love what I do at UBS. I was never a entrepreneur, but my life journey was an entrepreneur type journey where I came from Sweden to the US and went through college and did all this stuff. And there was a lot of ups and downs, lots of volatility. But, when I became a citizen and married my wife, it was like my liquidity event, right? And now I
Yeah.
get to help. Now I get to help folks that took risk, created better lives for others. And my job now is to preserve and grow that wealth and extract all the values and the lessons that journey brings. That's what America is to me. So if I
You
can
know
play
what?
a little small role in it, that's awesome.
No, that's awesome. And you know what? Congratulations on the US citizenship. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a big day for me, and it was an 18-year process.
I
That
read that in the bio.
yeah.
It was 18 years. So I'll tell you, I have 3 favorite tennis players of all time.
Okay.
Jimmy Connors, John McEnroe, Andre Agassi. What was
Big
it?
personalities.
Yeah, I don't know. I love the big personalities.
I
You know
love
what
it.
I
I
mean?
love it.
You
Yeah.
know, I grew up with a dad that loved watching tennis, right? So like when I was just knee high to a grasshopper, just a little guy. You know, I can remember thinking, gosh, what is this tennis sport? Why are we watching this all the time? But you're right. It's a beautiful sport. It is so, it's an incredible sport. But I got to ask, 3 days with Andre Agassi sounds incredible.
Yeah.
One, how did you set that up?
It was a once in a lifetime, pinch me deal for me because I grew up watching him as a kid. I actually have a couple friends on tour. One played Wimbledon center court this year, so he's that good.
Wow.
And we had the same childhood coach. So we didn't cross paths, but we had the same coach when we were kids. So we're very much wired the same.
Yep.
Like we don't even need to speak. And we're like, I know exactly what you're thinking because we were trained by this former Bosnian crazy coach. But he's on tour and listen, he cold called Andre one day and said, listen, I need help with my game. And he just so happened to be in Dallas, my friend practicing for the US Open. And he said, listen, I feel really good around you. Do you want to come with me to Vegas to practice with Andre Agassi for 3 days? And you better believe I jumped on that opportunity. And then just, I words cannot explain that for me because it was really cool hanging out with him for 3 days and getting to know him, and his wife Steffi Graf is even almost more famous than Andre. Right?
Another incredible player.
It was like one of those things where you can't pay for it. Life just, graced me with that blessing to hang out with them.
I love it. So, did you play on the court with Andre Agassi?
I mean, of course, I had to sneak it in a little bit. It was all about my friend at the moment, but when they were drinking water or something, I say, hey, let's hit a few, and I got a few in with them. So.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. What was it like? What was it like playing with him?
Unbelievable! Like it's like you're playing with your idol, right, all across the net. But at the end of the day, what I realized after 3 days with him, he's just another human being.
Yep.
He's just like us. He gets ticked off by the same things. He gets excited about the same things. But one thing I'll say about him, he is Mr. Grit.
Yeah.
He is grit, the definition of it. And his view on life is one that I really resonate with. Is never give up, work hard, be positive, don't look in the past too much, stay in the present moment.
You know, those are all great great qualities. I love that. And one final question on just, hitting some balls around with him. Were you trying to give him the serve at 135? Were you putting
it doesn't matter.
Andre
Agassi is one of the greatest returners of all times. So my serve is nothing to him. Like I didn't get to serve, but when you have Pistol Pete, Pete Sampras across the net, his entire career, and Agassi just bumped it back like nothing. So if there's one quality that Agassi had was his return of serve, and watching him teach that to my friend live, hearing it from him was a remarkable experience.
What was the number one tip that you would say you took away from watching him teach that return?
If we have to get technical, so a lot of tennis players, when the ball comes at you that fast, you tend to what are called chatter your feet. You kind of get flustered. And he said, just set your base and don't move your feet and just block it back. And that's something you have to actually think about, because when something's coming at you so fast, you tend to twitch a little bit. And he said, you need to be completely still and just move your upper body, and your lower body is extremely, center of gravity is 90 degrees down, and just bump it back. Something so small and simple in theory makes such a big difference at that level.
Is that something that you knew before that was just kind of, I've heard this before, I know it now, I'm hearing it from Agassi? Or was it, oh man, I hadn't heard this before, this is a kind of a great new tip?
I'd heard it. The one new thing I've heard from him was, if you feel like you want to lift your feet, he said, drag your feet. So
really?
Slide your feet. Yeah, and that's something new. I never thought about sliding my foot when something's coming at me 140 miles an hour. And And, especially when you get stretched,
Yeah.
you tend to want to kind of jump almost. He was like, no, just slide your feet, like literally drag yourself to the ball. That was something
Wow.
new. But just hearing it from him too was like, it makes a lot of sense. And then watching him do it, yeah, it was awesome.
And what's the number one life business tip you took from him in your meeting?
I said it earlier, if you don't practice, you don't deserve to win, period.
If you don't practice,
you don't deserve to win.
You don't deserve to win. I'm writing it
And
down.
Let me go into that a little bit. So I asked him, can you explain that? He goes, yeah, if I played a match and for 2 hours, I know I was doing the right things, I practiced that much, but I still lost the match. That just told me that I didn't deserve to win that match because I need to be able to do it for 2.5 hours. So then he will go practice to where he can do that for 2.5 hours. And then it just progressed that way to almost to a point where he felt like he can do it for a week and not get tired. That's when Agassi became super dominant. Nobody could outwork the guy.
Just a beast.
He just practiced that much. And it's the same thing in business. If you want to grow your business, you got to practice it. You got to keep focusing on it every single day. And if you do, you're going to be trading at best in class.
I think you mentioned it at the beginning of the call. Like, if your competitor makes 500 calls, you're going to make 1,000.
Yeah.
You're going to take the late night calls. You're going to take the meetings. You're going to push harder. You're going to grind harder. You're going to have the grit. You're going to never give up. You're going to be grateful for the journey. You're going to keep pushing and striving and moving. I love that. I've loved this conversation. I think it's been absolutely incredible. I've had a lot of fun on today's show. You've been a world-class guest. I appreciate it so much. If there was one tip that you could leave for the entrepreneurs listening to the show today, what would it be?
With regards to their wealth, I would start the conversation now and don't wait until later, because there's probably something in your personal life that needs to be addressed to make sure it all lines up. So I would start the conversation now. And there's no commitment needed. Just start the conversation.
I love it. That's a great tip. So if anybody's out there and they want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
My LinkedIn is an easy way to do it. Or you can email me at saman.samii@ubs.com. It's saman.samii@ubs.com.
Awesome. Listen, if you're out there and you're an entrepreneur or you've got wealth, do yourself a favor and reach out to my brother, Sammy. This is a great man, great individual, great stories, help you take your life and your business to the next level. I am a huge believer in wealth management. I'm a huge believer in having that quarterback behind your back, helping you with those decisions, helping you not only with just business, but life. I love the idea of partnership. I love the idea of support. You're on LinkedIn. Are you on any other social media?
I got rid of all my social media when I got married for one reason, and not to clutter my brain. So LinkedIn is unfortunately the only one.
That's okay. I love LinkedIn. It's a great place to hang out. So listen, follow Sammy on LinkedIn, reach out to him, hit him up. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. Follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere it's social. I'm hanging out. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Entrepreneurial Journey. Leave your comments in the comment box. I'd love to hear from you. Give us a like, give us a share. Outside of that, get hooked up with Sammy. Get hooked up with UBS. Take your business, take your professional wealth management to the next level. Get hooked up with these guys. They're world-class. Outside of that, we're going to see you next week, 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. This is The Entrepreneurial Journey. Thanks, Sammy. It's been awesome having you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Introducing the all-new Western Enforcer V-Plow. engineered with all the features, efficiency, and performance of full-size Western V plows built specifically for your half-ton truck. For more information, visit westernplows.com.